Well, Borg, we've broken our promise to ourselves, and we've gone along and painted some blossoms, or at least began. This is the scene. These are other humans, you see, living at this time, but they don't affect the picture. I'm just interested in the natural scene and the buildings. Sometimes I put people in, but not today. As you can see, there's a general interest in the tree. One, because it's the colour, but mainly I think because it comes out suddenly and disappears rather quickly. So you get people gathering round and photographing these things, and that is indeed why I'm painting it, which I promised myself I wouldn't, but there you go. The needs do must, Borg. But the other reason not to do this is because it impinges on whatever style you're trying to work in. Or let's put it another way, it's all becomes suddenly a bit commercial, and that affects your work, basically. Anyhow, that's about it for now. I'll have to come back next week. With a bit of luck, the blossoms will still be there. It depends on the wind. Right, Borg, we've escaped the madness of the Saturday afternoon in the town, where we had a bit of a go, but as usual, most of the time, or at least a good portion of it, is spent chatting with the passers-by, which I'm not complaining about, but the time does go. Anyway, we're back here looking at a view we've taken. Because we live here, we see this every day, and it starts to bother us, because we think how much more splendid it is to what we've managed to produce, which is there. Now, it should be said, Borg, if it's not obvious, and if I haven't emphasized it enough, we're not trying to copy. We're not trying to copy that exactly like a photograph. We're trying something else. Trying to say something different. Trying to put it together differently. We're trying to guide the movement through the picture differently. We're trying to emphasize some things over others, that sort of thing. All of it is not possible to describe necessarily, but it develops a certain sort of desire or feel for what you want develops. But as I say, because that is with us every day, I can't stop. I'm very tempted to go over it, even though I'd decided it was finished. You know, actually, Borg, if we were at this full time and we could just do what we wanted, really, I would never call it finished. I'd want to push it. It's the key, really, is to push. But because we don't have that luxury, I get it. So I'm somewhat happy with it. But the fact is, I think I want to do more on that one. but there's other things to be done. Other things are in the way, like this exhibition we've got planned. We're beginning to put something together. You can see they're on the wall, so people will come in and go up to each one and sort of look at each one on its own. It's like they become their own little worlds. Like that's one world, then they'll move to another one. That's another world, and they'll look around and then leave. But in doing that, a lot of people find some pleasure, you know. Me included, I should say. But it gets more difficult when it's different types of art, Borg. There's more difficult types of exhibition where you have to think more, or you're challenged, or you're insulted, frankly, by some farce that is presented loftily somehow. But what we're involved in is deliberately the most, on one level, the most basic and pleasurable of viewing sort of experiences. Even if the paintings are all rubbish, the actual offer is harmless, you know. It's an open offer, and anyone can engage with this type of exhibition. So that's what we're doing. But first to this old mess. See, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't, because this is what happens, Borg. We've gone from our genuinely felt painting, a bit like that, or some of the other larger ones, and we've gone back to something more like the constructing a scene with thoughts in our mind of punters and money, and the result is something a bit dispiriting, a backward step. So I'm going to take the unusual step today of roughing it up a bit, whilst not out there, you know, whilst not in front of it. So I'm going to do that a bit. So I'll turn you on just so you can be with us for this and see where we get to. We're going to have a coffee first, actually, Borg, because it's been quite a long day. And we saw something interesting we thought we ought to maybe talk about, because it's relevant to a lot of, very relevant to us, and seemingly it's a little story or a little snippet of an events in England that characterises the time a little bit, some of the confusion. And it surrounds the pandemic. It's about the pandemic. It was a little news item that I saw. The news is where an organisation gathers information, stories about the world, and selects some and presents it publicly. It's called the news. And this little snippet was an interview with a 20-year-old boy whose mother is a very influential conspiracy theorist who believes the pandemic we've suffered is a hoax, among various others. And this boy doesn't see his mother anymore. She's completely left the family to pursue her career as a conspiracy theorist, and that's the right word for it. But I mention it because, for two reasons. One, it's something we've referenced in our poem proposal about seemingly left-wing people, well off, quite posh left-wing thinking folk, are swallowing or have become convinced, you could say, of some wild conspiracies that you perhaps in recent times associate with the alt-right folk. And we mentioned that that sort of shift, which results in even more confusion to the humble onlooker, especially the one who's in a barn, you know, in a field in Sweden. The second thing we noticed about it is quite a bit of what she was saying chimed, let's say, with some things we believe. Although the way we think of it is not in the realms of conspiracy, but nevertheless, the subject is the internet companies and the accruing of data and information in order to control and surveil, if that's a word, to conduct total surveillance on society, and in short about the incredible power shift to internet companies, really, and the AI arms race, which this woman would talk about this sort of subject, but would just present it in the most sort of exciting and dramatic conspiratorial terms, you know, linking it all up into something very far-fetched. And this is a real problem because, as I say, we talk about similar things, Borg, the things that lead to you. That's the telephone. I think I've showed you before. We don't give you much because we don't even use a smartphone. We use this. Hello? Hello? Oh, wouldn't you? Sorry about this, Paul. There's almost no chance I remember what we were talking about there. Hi. The toothbrushes are in the car. I'll have to go and get them for you. I won't be long. I forgot. That's all right. I'll go and do it now. Okay, bye-bye. Right, Borg, you heard that. I'll have to turn this on in a bit. Well, we completely lost the drift to what we were saying there, Borg. So we've just got on with it. It can't have been that important. It's something about a crazy woman I saw on the TV, basically, and I don't know. I will leave it at that. We have waded into this in the studio. Very rare for us to do it. A bad idea. But perhaps not in this case, because our heart isn't in this completely, at least not yet. It might be when we get back there and give it a good, real go. But because we're not exactly keen on standing there in the middle of everybody at the moment, we want to get it ready so it's in a state to be gone for. and realizable in a session, you know. So we've gone back into it. I just, you know, I thought I'd show you. I suppose we're using our memories of the scene, but also our general knowledge of how you can make a picture look together and you know, to look like it's outdoors, which is often about making sure the sky is reflected in the ground and other elements. That's a big part of it, and we're trying to do that a bit here. But all in all, Borg, I think what it's best to do is to cut this one short and turn it back on when we're either back out there in front of that blossom, or we're tackling the tree study, as you can see down there. You remember that one? I think that's probably best for now, Borg. Just to otherwise say, I've been asked by my Dignity Scholarship reviewers, you could say, whether we might end up with a few guests on this little message series. I'm not so keen on the idea myself, Borg. This isn't a chat show after all. But the question was asked, and as they are very tactful, I'm reading between the lines. I think they've watched this, some of our messages to you, and maybe panicked a bit, or maybe thought we're way off course here with this, you know, these endless monologues. So it might be that they're not happy with what we're doing. So, guests, maybe. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, the most technical person I know is my wife's brother. He works he's a software engineer. He's worked on you. He works at a place that's responsible for teaching you how to read the eye movements of people, to scan the eye movements so that people can operate a computer just with their eye movements. Well, he's involved in that. So he would be a good person. See what he would ask you. I mean, other than that, there's my mother. I want to keep close family out of it, Borg, other than to say, you know, just to put in a good word for them, in case you don't turn out to be the reasonable folk we're hoping you turn out to be. Put in a word for them, but I don't want to have them on the show, really. I mean, it's... as I say, this is not a chat show, but I do respect these feedback comments on the rare occasion I get any. Clearly, we're aware that no one will watch these videos. If we were worried about making a watchable video akin to any one of the YouTube painters you might care to mention, then we wouldn't be talking to the singularity, and we wouldn't be doing it for half an hour at a time, peppering our conversation with bits of obscure art theory and conspiracy madness. You know, we wouldn't be doing that. So we know, Borg, that this is really between me and you. That's right. It's between me and you. I don't think a guest is really... There's no place for it. Maybe some questions, you know. Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe I'll take questions. You know, if I asked certain people, explain to them what I'm doing, and asked if they could talk to the singularity, what would you ask? That could work, Borg. That's a bit more like it. Anyway, that's it for now. As I say, we'll turn it on either back out at the tree or back out at the tree. So there you have it.